I bought this lesbian erotica when I was 16 in Provincetown, Massachusetts, which super, super gay place. Didn't know it at the time. And I just had my first real hookup with a girl at camp. So then I felt like I was just dropped into two alternative worlds. I was gay at camp, and then I go to this gay place right after. And I stumble into this woman's feminist bookstore, and I buy this book. I still have it. I'm like, Mom, how did you not know I was gay? This was literally by my bed. Faster Pussycats. And it's got the most 90s cover. It's all these bad 90s alt girls against a pink brick wall. And it was so hot. And that's when I was really oh my God, I am gay.
But first, a word from our sponsors.
It's the vibrator that has no equal. And now, Motor Bunny offers their thrusting sex machine, the Motor Bunny Buck. Enjoy a fan whore discount at manwhorepod.com/motorbunny or use promo code manwhore at checkout. Now let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Man Whore Podcast.
What's up, you summer skanks, you spring flings? Shout out to all the fall fillators out there. This is Billy Presida, and you're listening to the Man Whore Podcast. This week on the pod, I've got on the author of Girl, Stop Passing Out in Your Makeup, audio dramatist, dare I say professional lesbian, Zara Barrie. Looking forward to sharing that conversation with y'all in a little bit. Little brief PSA, just gonna say it, everyone. I know there's some political issues that have been going on that have been overshadowed by my sadness. Abortion rights under attack. Transhumanity questioned. The future of democracy kinda actually at stake. So I just gotta say, just gotta remind everyone, you gotta vote, and you gotta vote locally, and you gotta vote often. You gotta treat it like saving a Word document in 1999. Remember what they taught you in computer class? They said save early and often, and you should do that for voting. I hate that you have to now pay attention to the school board election, but that's where we're at. So do make sure you are registered to vote. I know a lot of progressives don't really believe in voting anymore, but also if you don't, how'd that work out in 2016? Okay? Okay, bub? Okay, love? Okay, buddy? Okay, fucker? Okay, slut? Okay, you big voting whore? Let's fucking do some things, please. Thank you. Because out here in New York City, there's really not much I can do. I can choose between a neolib, a progressive, and a communist. More important than the midterm voting. Let's get back to what's important. How is Billy doing? Those of you who've been following me on Instagram lately probably know it's been rough. Monday was supposed to be my 1-year anniversary with Wallet Note Lady. Was not as traumatic as I thought it was going to be. I went to the coffee shop we had our first date at. Sat there for 6.5 hours. Legitimately thought she might walk in the door at any moment. I was wrong. Life is not a movie. But here's one thing I've been doing to kind of cheer myself up a little bit. And again, the Instagram folks are well aware. I've been rocking glitter on the DL. And it has been at times a quality of life improvement. I'll put on a little glitter, just dab a little on the sides, or I'll smear it under my eyes like I'm an NFL linebacker, but fabulous. And then I just go about my day. I almost forget I'm even wearing it until people start looking at me and smiling. Baristas are saying, "Oh my God, I like your glitter." And I'm like, "Oh my God, thank you." I'm on the subway and women look a little less terrified of me. It's nice. I'm glad that in 2022, we can finally find a way for a man like me to feel comfortable walking out and about in the world. Isn't that sweet? But the glitter is nice. Some people have been asking me, what kind of glitter? What's your brand? No brand, just some generic bullshit that came with some rhinestones I got last year. I got a couple of baggies of glitter. They're actually in these dime bags. But if you have any brand recommendations, I should put on my Amazon wish list. I welcome those suggestions at manwhorepod@gmail.com. Thank you everyone for caring. I particularly want to give a thank you right now to Dapper Marts. Yes, it's time for a fan whore appreciation moment. Easily the most dapper nudes I've ever seen in the history of the Peep Show. You know, he's dropping nudes in there like if porn was served with a cup of tea. That's kind of what he's giving us. That's what he's delivering in the Peep Show. So I want to shout you out for it and thank you for supporting the Man Whore Podcast on Patreon. And if you too want to become a member, support the show, and get a shout out of your own, it's only $2 to join up. Truly, y'all, every dollar counts. In New York City, where rents are on the rise. Become a member today. Support the whore you love at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. And one of the things I did on microphone recently was I had a great conversation with Zara Barrie. She's super fucking fun. She showed up to my apartment. I opened the door and she's in this full Disney princess. If like the Disney princess was rebelling against her evil stepmother and like went out to a gay rave. That was kind of the look she was rocking, and it was awesome. Looking like she has had it up to here with this fucking prince and his goddamn slippers, and she's just gonna go to Cubbyhole and have a much better time. She assured me she doesn't wear this in her normal day-to-day. She was coming to my place from a photo shoot, and I guess she did not bring any street clothes. But hey, in Bushwick, a big old gay gown is street clothes. I've seen that casually on a Tuesday afternoon on the train. She's got her own great podcast. It's an audio drama called Girls on Jane. Let's go have a chat with Zara Barrie. Longtime listeners of the show know that I am a big fan of the Motor Bunny. Yes, and they are our sponsor this week. The Motor Bunny is a ride-on-top, saddle-style vibrator, and it's just... wow, this thing is powerful. How powerful is it? It turns a cis man's penis into a vibrator itself. The first time I opened the Motor Bunny was with my XP, and the first thing we did is we lubed me up. I sat down and got the Motor Bunny in me, and then P straddled me and I was in her, and she felt my dick vibrate via the vibrations coming from my ass. The Motor Bunny is magic. And because Motor Bunny is such a fan of the Man Whore Podcast, they give my listeners a very special discount, $50 off, when you use promo code MANWHORE at checkout at motorbunny.com. Again, that's $50 off with code MANWHORE at motorbunny.com. And yes, you can finance your vibrator. You finance a car, you finance a new phone, you finance your new fuck machine. Now let's get to the show.
No, I grew up in Connecticut, so I grew up right outside of New York City.
Okay.
And I would like sneak off to New York City all the time. And that was the mid-aughts, early aughts actually.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty old.
Oh,
yeah, I'm rearing towards, mid-30s.
Okay. Oh, you're rearing towards the mid-30s.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm in my mid-30s.
Okay, well, I'm about to be 33. I was just doing math. I'm like, well, mid-aughts, I was like, well, weren't we in high school? But maybe you were rambunctious.
Yeah, I was
15-year-old gay chick in Connecticut.
Absolutely. That is exactly me. Yeah.
You said you had a story about chasing Amy?
Yeah, story about chasing Amy. And
My favorite.
just told my podcast partner this the other day, and she was like, I cannot believe you did that. So speaking of being a wild, rambunctious teenager, I saw the movie Chasing Amy probably in about 8th grade, Blockbuster VHS.
Good days.
Loved it.
Why in 8th grade were you picking out Chasing Amy?
I read that. It was very in line with what I was into then.
Right, but
I like Kevin Smith. I started to get into, and I don't know. I was a pretty advanced kid, and I mean, I think after I saw the movie Gia, which is, have you seen the movie Gia?
I know that there's a movie Gia, but I know nothing else.
It's Angelina Jolie, sort of one of her first big movies. Okay. She won the Golden Globe, and it's the true life story.
You kind of like upper half of your like whole face kind of has this Angelina thing going on.
Well, that's like the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. Thank you. But I saw that movie, and she plays like a lesbian supermodel addicted to heroin who dies of AIDS. It's a true story. And so once like that band, and I was obsessed with that movie. I watched it 100 times. So once that Band-Aid was ripped off, I was like, oh, I don't want to see anything age appropriate. Like, fuck. And that might have even been like 6th grade, to be honest.
And did you know you were gay back then?
After I saw the movie Gia, I knew I was,
Gia, that's kind of what started clicking it for you?
I mean, I was like, something is definitely. And then I saw Chasing Amy, which had a nice little lesbian theme, which I know a lot of lesbians are offended by. But I thought it was great. I mean, whatever. Sometimes that happens.
I watch it now and I go like, this is still... I mean, granted, like, who am I to say anything? But I was like, I feel like that movie still holds up pretty okay.
Yeah, no, the Dykes are just pissed because she goes with a guy, and that's
but then I mean, spoiler alert, she doesn't. By the end of it, she's still with a lady.
Right,
she's with Kevin Smith's sister at the end of the thing.
Right. I don't know. I just, some lesbians, I like to call them joyless lesbians. They like to get offended by everything. They like to look for things. I'm not one of those. I thought the movie was art. But, when she does that monologue where she's like, he finds out that she's been with men before. And she's like, yeah, I fucked 3 guys at once. And yeah, like so-and-so fucked me after the prom. And so what? I'm like in 8th grade. And I'm like, that is a powerful monologue. Yeah. And I transcribed the whole thing and I use it as an audition for fucking school. Like high school, public high school. Like, I think it's like, okay, go in full blast. And I'm like, yeah, I fucked 2 guys at once. You want to hear some other gems you might have not unearthed? Like, I still remember the monologue. I'm pretty sure that's the exact opening. And then she ends it by saying like, I didn't tell you the truth about being with men because I didn't want you to think that you weren't as amazing as you are, because this is the first time I did it and enjoyed it. So, so I remember thinking like, wow, what beautiful emotional beats. But like, it was a pretty risque monologue to perform for school.
Yeah.
For like the school play. I didn't get cast. It was like Music Man or something.
Oh, you weren't?
No,
you
like, and I knew I
Music
wasn't
Man
going to. Yeah.
with
Like,
Chasing Amy monologue?
Right. And I knew I wasn't going to. I just wanted to do the monologue. And I think I used, because I used to be an actor, I think I used that monologue for like most of my teens. I think now in hindsight, I feel like someone would have called Child Protective Services now, like on my parents, this like 14-year-old being like, I fucked 3 guys at once,
See, you love the scene in the hockey rink, and my scene is the monologue right after in the parking lot.
Right. I think I merged them. Isn't that when it gets emotional and she's like...
I didn't, unlike you might have gotten a map that pointed you from A to B, but unlike you, I wasn't getting a fucking map
at birth. Yeah.
Boom.
Right. Like maybe you were point A to point B, but I didn't get I had to figure it out. Like, it's, now that you said God, I have so many memories of just being up all night as a kid, like memorizing that, acting it, feeling like I understood, even though I hadn't done anything, I
have goosebumps right now, just like
it's so good.
It's just for me, because I don't think I don't know. I don't even know what these words mean anymore. But like, I don't think you think the straight guy is identifying with Joey's character,
right?
In that, right? But like, that was always. I never was like, oh, I'm him. I was always like, no, that's me. Because I was like, I don't know where I'm going. I'm gonna try it out by doing, and I'm gonna figure out who I am from that. And that's just so much what she's sharing in that fucking monologue, and that she's being rejected in a way for it that. And then she's like, I fucking love you. And he pushes her away. And every time I look, and I was like, Ben, you motherfucker.
I know. Well, I mean, I think that's...
I get really worked up.
No, it's true. I do too. And I haven't thought about it in years. And it's interesting that was a monologue that resonated with me at such a young age before I was even sexually active. But I think I also related to I have to try things out. I knew I was never going to do like the road map.
Yeah.
The Connecticut road map. Probably because I knew maybe I was gay and like things, even though I hadn't fully identified that way yet, I just knew something was different and I wasn't going to be on the fucking road map.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it was like dramatic foreshadowing, because then I lived that monologue in a way, Yeah.
And that monologue doesn't even really have to do with sexuality.
No,
It's just about finding yourself through a bumpier road than others and just fit in.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I've just always related with that one.
Right.
I also relate with the scene where we're all surprised about fisting. I mean,
Yeah.
that was another formidable moment as a youth.
That actually scared I forgot about
scary.
that scene. That scared me from being gay.
Yeah?
I was like, ow. No, do they do that? And then I learned like that is not necessarily the definition of lesbian sex. I remember talking about it with my friends because that was a movie we used to watch on like. Sorry, I had like a stroke. I was like, I've had a really long day.
You really aren't one of those joyless lesbians.
No, I'm not. They're definitely not having strokes.
That fake stroke is ableist.
Oh, shit. All right, whatever. My podcast partner has one arm. Anyway. She does.
You just threw out your one-armed co-host.
Exactly.
Like
I
a
do.
Connecticut mom throws around the one black friend.
Oh, hell yeah. It's gotten to the point we're so codependent that it's now we have one arm. Like when someone's like, oh, but like someone just tries to give us a hateful comment, we're like, we have one arm. You can't say that to us. But what were we talking? I can't remember.
Well, it's a good time to say I'm here right now with writer Zara Barrie. Hello.
Hi.
Author of the book Girl, Stop Passing Out in Your Makeup.
Yes.
Relatable much, everybody?
Yep. And also, I'm not I'm whoring out my podcast partner for her one arm, but like, her and I hoe each other out for different ways. I have full consent to hoe her out as much as possible.
But yes, welcome to the show. Welcome to the pod. I'm glad we're able to kick it off with a mutual love for Kevin Smith's GLAAD award-winning movie.
Did it win a GLAAD award?
He won one. He won one for writing. For screenplay, he was nominated for some others.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So anytime people throw down on that one, I always get up and I'm like, I will defend Chasing Amy with my last dying problematic breath.
Right.
Just be like, no, this one's different from the others.
But also, I mean, I think when it comes to, I get why the gay community, the queer community, it definitely gets old to always have the same story where the girl goes back to the guy or the girl stops being gay, especially when you grew up, everyone gay and feminine, everyone always says like, oh, a matter of time till you're with a guy. So I fully empathize with that. However, like, I don't necessarily think that art needs to have an agenda. Like, this is just this person's story and it's interesting and it's good and it's well written. So like, I don't know, like I don't find it problematic. I think, you know what, I'm kind of pretentious. If it's good, then it can kind of do whatever it wants.
Do you know what Kevin's agenda was when he wrote that movie?
No, I have no idea.
He wrote it so you know that he has a gay brother, and I think Virginia is a lesbian also, but he's got a gay brother, and once told him how like he never saw himself on screen because like there weren't a lot, 90s, not a lot of gay characters, and so he was like, man, that really bums me out, and he wrote that movie so like he could throw some stuff up for his brother, for his family up there.
That's awesome.
And it was like, this was like, he wrote that for his gay brother. I don't know. Anyways,
no, Lesbian's like no greater trigger than a film that has, either they die or they're with a man, know, but I think it's like executed brilliantly and I love the movie.
Did people tell you that it was just a phase or you have to wait to meet the right man?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. What has been your experience with that?
I mean, even like I love my mother. I'm obsessed with my mother, but like when I think what parents do is they project themselves onto you. Shocker, I'm not saying anything fucking mind-blowing, but they project their shit onto you. And I think my mom was a model and, just grew up in a time where it was she's 70s, very liberal, working in fashion, but grew up in a time where it was like, you should always have a man for security purposes. And, I kind of got that message. So
that hedge your bet feminism where it's like, do you, but like have that as a backup.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, always be like, my mom's English. So like, oh, go after someone you love, darling. But, it's not terribly hard to find someone with a bit of money, And then and also I was a horrible student. I was always into acting and writing and not very secure things. I was horrible student. So I think that, they're like, oh, she'll be fine. She'll probably mess around with acting for 5 years and then find a husband. And like, when I said I was gay, it sort of took that plan and threw it on its head. And, I think that they were like, are you sure this isn't just a phase?
They forgot about the acting part.
They're like, oh, shit, But it's been a blessing for the whole family because my mother just loves, she's a girl's girl. So that part's great. But also just, I think it's opened up their eyes as to like what I'm capable of because all of a sudden they were like, she doesn't have a man to fall back on, even though I could easily find a woman to fall back on. Anyone can, but their brains didn't go that direction. They're like, fuck, now you've got to like really advocate for yourself. And I'm like, well, I was kind of planning on doing that anyway. And all of you bitches underestimated me. And now you have no choice but to believe in me because there is no plan B, you know?
Yeah, we're in
So it was good. Yeah.
We've attached certain words to ourselves on Google for forever.
Exactly.
I'm forever some whore guy.
Right.
You know, I'm all in. There's no pivoting here.
Totally.
You know, you said that Gia really opened things up for you and Chasing Amy was connected with you. Was there other media growing up that like really spoke to your blossoming queer heart?
Oh, yeah. I mean, because I have been always the kind of kid that escaped into movies and books, and I'm a writer now. I mean, that was my favorite thing to do, is just like research and find lesbian content, you know? And it was harder back then, you know? There wasn't really Facebook. MySpace was around. I don't know if you were on LiveJournal.
I went to a boarding school where there was a lot of lockdowns internet-wise, so I knew about LiveJournal, but I don't know if I had access.
Oh, did you go to a Troubled?
Yeah, actually. I
almost went.
They wouldn't call themselves a problem kid school, but like it was kind of in between.
Right.
Like this troubled teen industry. We would get kids from problem schools who were transitioning down, or kids who went from some school to us and then were so bad they had to go up.
Okay, so you weren't like taken out of your house in the middle of the night type
but
thing?
We had some kids who were, or kids who like had that happen. They go to wilderness program like Red Cliff or something, and then they come back. Then they come to our school. So it was like this weird like alternative education thing. So a lot of blocks on the internet.
I went to a similar kind of school. It wasn't a boarding school, but it was a day school. It was called the Achievement Center, which I know it's like it's like really, you know, but it was kind of the middle
We're giving
ground.
up on education. We just want you to achieve.
We had cigarette breaks. I'm not kidding. We had cigarette breaks, and it was go at your own pace.
Yeah.
But a lot of those kids had come out of like the troubled teen industry, behavioral modification, or got sent there from there.
Yeah.
It was like kids that got kicked out of either like bougie private schools, and this was like the stop before the behavioral modification, or like the stop in between. I had a girl tell me, I'm sorry, no, we're going so off, but I had this girl tell me that, because a lot of them are Mormon, those schools are in Utah, and they're run by Mormons, that they would give them random panty checks and make sure they weren't wearing tampons because that was considered like sex.
Oh yeah.
It's just so perverse.
So fucking weird.
It's so fucked up.
So weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was our generation. I mean, that's like I feel like a defining sort of mid to early aughts like generation. I don't feel like there is.
Write a check to send your kid and get fixed, because now it's getting called out and there's like a term for it. I only learned this term, troubled teen industry, this year.
Okay.
So it's like, it's a whole.
It is.
Whole thing.
It's a whole thing. Yeah.
But you were saying that like you would look up stuff like LiveJournal. We didn't have MySpace quite yet.
Right.
But,
so I had a LiveJournal.
It's like, what are you watching? What are you listening to? Who
scrambled porn for sure.
Yeah.
Who didn't? But I would also, I had a LiveJournal, and it's funny that I became a writer, because basically what I do now and how I make money is by memoir writing. And that's what I did then, but I didn't know it was like a thing. I had a popular LiveJournal, and it was before the term blog even existed. And other teenagers would follow me and like write comments, and I would find like other queer teens, and like, we'd meet at punk shows in New York City and things like that. So that was pretty cool. But how I would say media that impacted me so much. First of all, I bought this Lesbian erotica when I was 16 in Provincetown, Massachusetts, which super, super gay place. Didn't know it at the time. Came like straight from arts camp, and visited my friend who had a house in Provincetown. And I just had my first like real hookup with a girl at camp. So then I felt like I was just like dropped into like two like alternative worlds. I was like gay at camp, and then I go to this gay place like right after, and I stumble into this woman's feminist bookstore, and I buy this book. I still have it. I'm like, Mom, how did you not know I was gay? This was literally by my bed. Faster Pussycats. And it's got the most 90s cover. It's like all these like bad like 90s alt girls like against like a pink brick wall. And it was so hot. And that's when I was really like, oh my God, I am gay, you know? And then from there, you know, finding the little lesbian indie movies, getting into like Riot Girl punk rock music, and then by the time I was like a junior, I think is when the L Word came out. So that was like great timing. And I'm like, I'm fucking moving to LA. And I did, you know?
And what happened when you hit LA? Did you find a Mecca?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't that smooth. It wasn't like the L Word. I was like an awkward, terrified of my own shadow 18-year-old, like, you know, having to sneak through the back of lesbian bars. And it was a mess. But it was. I mean, that time was a very cool time, I think, in lesbian culture. It was just like a lot of badass sort of skater girl punk lesbians. And I felt like I had like died and gone to heaven, you know? It was like, I think I experienced and still am sometimes, and most gays are, like a delayed adolescence.
When you first got into that world and into that scene at 18, 19, what's like an early thing that shocked you?
Shocked me. I don't know why it shocked me, but it still shocks me. The fucking drama. Where lesbians go, drama follows. And anyone who's offended by that is only offended because it's true.
What was your first introduction to that?
Oh my God. I mean, I think, you know, because there isn't such a big pool, even in a place like LA, it still feels small. It still feels like everybody knows everybody. And also, you know, lesbians, a lot of us have specific types, and there's only so much of that type. And it's just hard to not fall in. I mean, I guess I'll just say it. It's like, it's hard to not fall for like a friend's ex, you know, when you're in this small world. And plus, emotions are high, especially when you're first coming out. Like, if you think about middle school and boys and girls are first dating and they're having big dramatic breakups and fights and feelings, and you don't know what to do with your hormones. I think gay people experience that as, you know, adults, because when we did that in middle school, it wasn't authentic. Either we didn't do it at all, or we manufactured it. I manufactured it. I had boyfriends. I'd pretend to get upset, but I never cared. I never got what the big deal was, as I was like, you know, get over him. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I'm like dating someone that I really like, and I have these huge feelings, and oh my God, sex, lust, all this stuff is so new. So you're having this middle school experience, except for you have to pay bills and you're an adult and you have a job, you know?
Yeah. So, you can't get away with everything as an adult that you're allowed to when you're 13.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're consequences.
When you were manufacturing those adolescent or high school relationships, do you know that you're manufacturing them, or do you feel like you're just kind of doing what you're supposed to? But you don't know why?
I don't think I knew I was manufacturing them at all. I think that came like after I started to really date girls as an adult, and I was like, oh my God, wait, this is why, you know, Joanna was so upset. You know, I would kind of just was playing along, but at the time I thought everybody was kind of playing along. Yeah. You know? But I think there'd be moments where I'm like, what's wrong with me? Like, I'm not as bent out of shape over these boys as some of these girls are. You know, am I missing a chip? But I wasn't, I didn't, I would love to say like at the time I was like, I'm just faking it because I'm gay. Like, no, it was also blurred and layered, and I thought just I was weird or something.
When did you realize that it was, you know, you weren't weird? It's just, oh, I'm not into these.
I think probably like sophomore year of high school, I remember going to Boston to visit my brother and being at this restaurant, and there was a lesbian couple at the restaurant. They worked there. They were like one was the hostess and one was the the waitress, and they clearly were dating because they kept like flirting, and I couldn't stop staring at them. And I was just I felt something I'd never felt in my entire life. And I was like, holy shit, like I think I'm gay. So then I remember going back to my brother's house. He was like maybe 21 and all his friends, and doing a gravity bong rip, dying, choking on the ground, looking at my brother and saying, I think I'm bisexual. And his best friend, who I tease to this day, responded with, I wish my sister was bisexual, which is the weirdest. I know, but it's so funny because he was just high. But like, he's like, Zara, it's the one like stupid, creepy thing I've ever said. And you tell it at like you tell it at every family event, every speech.
That was 20 years ago.
Like, can you please let me live this down? So the poor guy will like never live it down.
I like to think he's like, oh, because then I'd be able to talk to you about chick. That's my out.
Probably. Who knows? Who knows?
So it was seeing that couple. Okay.
Yeah, I just thought they were so hot, and there was like an electricity between them, and I was never. That's like it sealed the deal for me.
And what was that first date with a woman like?
Well, I hooked up with a girl in high school, like on the sly for a while, like all of junior year and half of senior year. And then, of course, we had a huge fight. And everyone's like, just like jealousy. She had boyfriends. I had boyfriends. We were like completely hidden. We were best friends. We went to different high schools, and we were kind of, we were very similar. Like she was much more athletic than I was, but we both hung out with skater boys, and we were possessive, I think, over the skater boys. And then it just was so messy.
Were you fighting over boys you don't actually like?
Not even fighting over boys. It was more like getting jealous if she got a boyfriend, or her getting jealous if I got a boyfriend, and they'd be our friends, the guys, because we were in the same group. But then it would just come out in toxic ways, because whenever you're lying about things, it just got so messy that we ended up completely not talking the end of high school. But that was very much secretive, so that didn't feel like as exciting as hooking up, and all that felt exciting. But as far as dates, yeah, oh my God, I remember I'm married now, but I mean, I'm the type of person, I'm such a romantic, like I get nervous for every single date, ever since I came out. And if I'm attracted to someone, I just shut down. I have no personality, and I love that. Like, I think that's one of the things I miss the most about being single, is like the excitement and the nerves and like feeling alive. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I mean, as much as I know it's not flattering unless they find it adorable, like I love getting like just stupid. I like just being like, oh, you're cute, pretty, and I don't know how to formulate words right now. So I'm sorry I'm not being suave and funny, because it's like I am fumbling over my words. There's an excitement in just your brain shutting off by being like thinking someone's cute.
Which is what it happens though. Nice. Like it actually, science like confirms that sexual desire interferes with the part of your brain that's responsible for logic, which explains a fucking lot, right? I mean, think of the dumb things we've done in the name of lust.
I think it explains like tens of millions of pregnancies.
Businesses, startups.
Startups, oh my God.
Do you know how many bad startups?
Oh God. Is that how Luminary started?
Do you feel like Luminary is a bad startup? I don't know much about it.
All I know is received like hundreds of millions of dollars, and has yielded like less than a percentage point of the market share of downloads for podcasts. Right. It pretty much was an idea that crashed and burned.
I listened to one podcast on Luminary, so I subscribe. But
so you pay the?
I pay just because I love that podcast.
Which one?
I like the C Word with Lena Dunham and her friend.
You like a Lena Dunham thing?
I do. That's like probably the most controversial thing I'm probably going to say.
Yeah, because I can't remember the last time I saw someone publicly say they enjoyed something from Lena Dunham after season 2 of Girls.
Okay, let me explain. This podcast is fucking brilliant. She and her friend, who's an actual historian of bad behavior, they just do deep dive investigative journalism into women throughout history that have been called crazy. So they have like, so it's not so much her waxing poetic about her opinions or her life. It's just a well done it's a well done like investigative journalism, sort of like true crime, but for crazy girls.
Okay.
And most of it isn't, I don't mean true crime by salacious murder, but I mean in that investigating like why are these women in history called crazy and why were they called crazy and what really happened. So yeah.
Okay.
I'll admit it. I own it. I like that. I also think Girls is a masterpiece.
I think I dropped off like when she goes to Iowa. I think is
okay.
So I have not.
So almost.
There's only so many times I can look at a show that says that like, this whole 2-bedroom apartment 2 unemployed people are totally affording. That's like a pet peeve of mine in watching New York based movies and TV shows, because like at some point I'm going to start to get angry and resentful that they have that much space in that neighborhood and they don't have a job.
Right. Or they work at a coffee shop or something.
Yeah, it's like I know how much you're making and I know how much that apartment is, and this don't work.
Right. Even when she got that bougie job, her character in journalism, I'm like, that's even less. Like the bougier the journalism job, you're not making as much as a barista, you know?
Well, speaking of that, you've done a lot of writing about like the lesbian underground scene, the nitty gritty. And as someone who's running around here like a playground in the mid to late aughts and now, I imagine the scene's different, right?
Yeah.
What are some like very noticeable differences between the lesbian scene now and then?
Okay. Well, I will preface that I'm not cool enough to be part of the underground scene. I'm pretty mainstream.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely lesbian, and I definitely am a huge lesbian bar, hoe, nightlife, all of it.
I could say I
would say I'm like a mainstream lesbian.
Then we could say how about I'll rephrase
because I know there's cool parties, and someone's gonna be like, "Bang, you're not," because I'm definitely not in the cool like Bushwick. Small underground party potluck.
You don't get invited to the sex parties?
I mean, I have been invited to the sex parties.
Do you go to the sex parties? Have you been the wink? No? Okay.
No, I haven't. No, I again, the parties that I have gone to of sexual nature are usually mixed, guys and girls, and it's usually been for work, just like not for sex work. That makes me sound much cool. Though I have heard sex and dating writers call themselves sex workers, and I'm like, you guys need to get a fucking hold of yourself.
I saw someone, years back, I saw someone make the argument of like someone like some people. I sell dick. I guess whatever. Okay, people who talk about sex professionally could be under that umbrella, and I was like, I get what you're trying to do politically here, but I feel like that's a little stretch.
I think it's a bit of a stretch. Yeah, like I've written about everything under the sexual sun, and I was the senior sex and dating writer at Elite Daily for 3 years. So I've written about every kind of blowjob. I used to have a series called Les Get You Laid, Sex and Dating Advice to Men from a Lesbian, like a video series. So I'm pretty, I
want
definitely.
to do the reverse. I want to do sex and dating advice for lesbians from the straight guy.
Okay. All right. Good luck.
But I'll round up my question then more to like, what was like kind of
but it has
queer
changed.
Nightlife like back then versus now. I'm always interested in someone who's in a particular subculture,
right?
Like so, for example, like a porn vet, who's been in it since '99. Okay, well, tell me about it then, and
that's like my favorite topic. All I want to do is like interview porn people about the difference between, because it's just even just as a porn watcher, it's amazing. It's so fascinating. I'm like, how do people make money? Like I find that so curious.
Yeah, I brought up the fucking AOL chat rooms at a comedy show on Saturday, and it was like talking about the lesbian AOL chat rooms where it's just a bunch of men pretending to be lesbians to each other, exchanging various porn pictures that are clearly professionally done, and we're all pretending this is us.
Right.
It was like, oh, he sent the pic of the chick on the bike saying that's him, and I've gotten that from like 5 different people.
Right.
It's all just a bunch of dudes pretending to be lesbians.
Or a bunch of 12-year-old girls like me and my friends in 8th grade being like, hee, sending it to, like sending pictures that we'd find, not of us, and chatting and sexting.
But it's always exchanging porn saying it's you.
Saying it's you, but the poor guys would be like, or at least claim to be like guys in their 30s. And we'd be like, we're in our 20s. But meanwhile, we were like 12. But they were probably 12-year-old girls too.
The amount of unintentional crimes that were committed in AOL chat rooms.
I know.
It's astonishing.
Totally.
But yeah, the difference in subcultures are always fascinating to me. And so like, look, I know there were more bars back then than now, but that's about all I know.
Right. No, it has changed. It's interesting. So I would say like coming of age, I wasn't in the heyday of like Click Club and all that stuff, which I love to hear about. But what I'll say is that the lesbian bars in the mid-aughts, when I first started going out, were much more, because there was no dating apps, and also just politically things were very different than they are now. Pre-marriage equality in particular, they were really like the only place to go if you wanted to meet people to date. Because, I think gay men, they're a little easier to identify. They're a little bit more out. There's a lot more gay guy bars. There always has been, which makes sense, just as far as like income and just, I'm very much a gay man in that like I am married and I still go out all the time. But I don't know, a lot of lesbians are, domestic, whatever. But it was like, there was such a sense of like, we have to go to the lesbian bar. It was your only option. And then also what was huge would be these lesbian parties. And I think that has always been the main crux of lesbian nightlife. Of course, there's like the Cubby Hole and the Henriettas and the Gingers, and I'm obsessed with those places. But when like the big things, like once like the monthly party or the Les Volley, which is a lesbian volleyball tournament on Fire Island that has a great party, and I'm obsessed. I think it's going to be there.
Tickets to watch. That sounds like a fun volleyball tournament.
It's honestly the most fun thing you will ever do. Or like the Dinah Shore, which is this huge 3-day lesbian party in Palm Springs by a pool. Those kind of things, like big events, are where lesbian culture still shines and has always shined. And then we went through a weird lull recently before the pandemic where I think a lot of the younger generation, first of all, I don't know if you realize this, I've only since learned this, don't understand that you need to tip. Like I've had my lesbian bartender friends, like we can't survive because the younger generation, genuinely, a lot of them don't know that you're supposed to tip.
Or do they not make? Does the young generation just not make any money?
I never made money. I always knew to tip.
I know. Like there's knowing the tip, and sometimes there's like I don't got it.
I don't got it, but like A, if you don't got it, don't go. Come on. And B, I do think I've had some like seasoned lesbians tell me that they've pulled the kids aside and been like, do you realize what the hourly wage of these bartenders are? Yeah. And they didn't understand.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like I'm saying like NYU, and I know you went there and a lot of my friends went there, like wealthy kids don't seem to know the tip thing, which is like so crazy to me.
I knew the tip, and I knew the tip better when I started meeting more people in the service industry. So, I could see a world where well-to-do, like kids with wealthy backgrounds who have the cash and just don't know about tipping.
Just don't know, right?
They don't know people who work on tips, and therefore they don't realize the importance of it.
Right. So I think that was actually a really big problem. And then also just people weren't showing up like they used to because, which is a beautiful thing, having like queer as a term, I think is a beautiful thing. And a lot of people I know identify as queer. And if someone calls me queer, I am not offended. Call me whatever the fuck you want to call me. Just don't call me late to dinner. But like, I think with that, a lot of people were like, well, do we need lesbian bars? Do we need them? Because, a lot of people, a lot of queer young women the term lesbian wasn't resonating with them. And there were, more mixed parties, which again is a great thing, but it was really sad because I do think that women deserve women. And also like, I'm not the kind of person that's like, men shouldn't be allowed in there. Trans people shouldn't be like, no, like I'm never like the more the merrier. Yeah. But I think like it is important to have spaces when you're a lesbian, you're so fucking objectified. And I'm not sensitive about that. Like I am very sexual. Love thirst traps. Like if I'm not getting objectified, sometimes I'm like, oh fuck, I've really gone downhill. So I'm not that sensitive to it. But that being said, when you're trying to like get to know someone and you're on a date and you're at a straight bar and you have that moment where you start kissing and you forget where you are and all of a sudden a group of dudes is surrounding you, it does suck. And I do think we need these spaces. And then the pandemic hit and all these lesbian bars were, under threat and they were hardly surviving as is. And I think that this nostalgia came over, and a lot of the younger generation started to be so fascinated by just what the scene was like in the early aughts. The Lesbian Bar Project was incredible.
We had Lisa Menachino, the owner of Cubby, was on promoting that back that year.
Oh, okay, I love her. Yeah, I love Lisa. I just had my birthday party at Cubby like 2 weeks ago.
I love that place.
I love the Lesbian Bar Project. My friends do that, and I think it just really educated people. Like, we could lose this, and ever since the pandemic has slowed down, I just see a hedonism in New York nightlife, lesbian nightlife, that I haven't seen since the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. There's just that sexual energy is back. I also think, digital stuff for a while we thought filled our cup, like in real life stuff. And a lot of the young people were just meeting each other. Like, they can meet each other on apps. They didn't need to go to Cubbyhole to meet. So they were taking it for granted. But now that they had this time without any IRL interaction, they were like, shit, it's not really as fulfilling, without that safety net of knowing Cubby's down the street and I could meet someone in person if I wanted to. All of a sudden, this digital dating felt really empty, and people are really hungry for connection, and they're showing up again. They're like, I did the online thing for 2 fucking years without a choice, and I don't want to do that anymore. So it's been really amazing. All the parties are selling out, and there's a huge diversity in age and background and class. It's awesome. It's really in a good place, and I think it's only going to get better.
What's your favorite party?
Favorite party? Well, I'm definitely partial to Les Volley. I love Les Volley. My serialized audio drama, Girls on Jane, which is about lesbian culture in the early 2000s, has a lot of scenes that take place in Les Volley, because it's so interesting to see all the people you see at the bar on the beach in the daylight. Yeah. Brings out a whole other side, and I'm a huge Fire Island person. And I love the people that do Les Volley. So everybody, please come to Les Volley. So much fun. It's in August. But as far as a week or monthly party, there's a new one called Scope that's new post-pandemic, and that feels very, it's astrology themed. It's in Bushwick. That's Nowhere Bar.
Oh no, that's Nowhere Bar.
Okay, yeah, no, it's at a bar in Bushwick, and it's just got that like sexual energy where it's like high stakes. Like, oh, if I don't meet someone tonight, I might have to wait a whole other month. Wow. Because
what's the difference between these parties and just like going out to a bar, going out to like a queer bar?
Well, the queer bars, it's a little bit more wild. I would say lesbian parties in general, people are more dressed up. You plan it out, it's like it's only going to happen, once a month. There's go-go dancers. Okay. There's just more of that nightlife energy. Whereas if I go to Cubby, it's more of that home, comfy, bar where everyone knows your name, where every dyke knows your name, I guess.
Because the night I got that match set from Nowhere Bar, I went there because Crocodile Lounge was closed. And I was there with a friend of mine, and it was like, well, you want to grab a drink? Let's go Nowhere. And we go in, and there was like a theme night. It wasn't like a ticketed party because everyone was there, and it was like, I guess, wrestling or something. There was just dicks out because a bunch of dudes were wearing the mix between the wrestling singlet and like sexy lingerie singlet. Okay. But like dicks just out in the bar. I'm like, that was pretty wild, and that was just a regular Friday night.
Yeah. No, gay men really know. They know how to do it. In Fire Island, every Friday there's like the underwear party, and they do that even in the city in the winter. They have underwear parties. But lesbian culture, our bars tend to be more chill, and then our parties are where we get really wild.
Sick.
Yeah.
So you're married?
I'm married.
You're married?
Yeah.
Oh, well, how long you been married?
I've been married. I'm the worst. I'm so not sentimental. I think it's been 3 years.
Holy shit.
No, I love her to death. Neither of us are. We're both like off the charts ADHD. Okay. So I know that we got married on October 27th. I think it was 2018.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, that's That's my parents' wedding anniversary.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't make it. They're
Oh.
long divorced. But 1027, I know that because 1027 was one of the passcodes to unlock the Playboy channel.
Oh,
As a
okay.
kid. I was like, okay, that's, and it was like, hey, when's your anniversary? Yeah, October 27th. Let's try that. Oh, that unlocked the channels.
Oh, yeah. See, I miss unlocking the Playboy channel. It's funny because my only serious boyfriend, that was his birthday, which I didn't do intentionally.
Oh, that would
have been fucked up.
That would have been quite the fucking
yeah. No,
so to speak. Yeah. It was funny about the Playboy channel at my household is that we had it, and then all of a sudden we stopped. My dad moved out. My parents separated 5 times right before they got split, and so he moves out, and then when he got home, when he came back the first time, Playboy channel disappeared. We didn't have it anymore.
Okay.
I was unlocking. They were like, "Oh, you're not subscribed." I'm like, "Oh, bummer." But then every time my dad moved out, all of a sudden we got the Playboy channel again.
Right.
And every time my dad came back, the Playboy channel was gone. And then I think it took me a decade to be like, oh, wait, mom was into the Playboy channel.
Right. Right. I remember the Playboy channel. Does it even exist anymore? No, right?
Yeah, they got original programming and everything.
Is it good?
I don't fucking watch because I don't, I'm a cord cutting millennial, so I don't have
Right.
I got YouTube TV. I don't think they're carrying that, but
I remember, when you're little and like you see something and you just like experiment with saying it out loud to your parents. And I remember seeing the Playboy channel and being like, I was watching the Playboy channel. And my dad being like, what? And then him and my uncle laughing, and then all of a sudden it was locked after that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, my parents were so open about all that. My mom was did a lot of nude modeling. She actually is an original bunny.
Wait, your mom was a Playboy bunny?
My mom's an original bunny, like scouted in Manchester, like when they opened the club in London, and then has done modeling and stuff from the magazines. And she's been on the cover of Penthouse. She's also like done other stuff. She's always like, why do you always talk about this? She's like, I also was on billboards for Winston cigarettes and did Revlon. And I'm like,
but no one cares about Revlon cigarettes. Like, mom, where were your titties out at?
Yeah. Oh yeah, if you Google my mom, that's like the first.
What would we Google?
And in fact, a friend of mine found an old like a t-shirt that had one of her Penthouse covers like on it, and bought it and wore it through the airport. And I thought he photoshopped it like onto his shirt just to fuck with me, but he's like, no, I was actually wearing it.
No, this is your mom.
Yeah.
It's your mom.
I was like, fuck.
And was your mom killing it?
I mean, oh my God, yeah, my mom's so fierce. Yeah, she's hot, fierce, like, and that was also a different time, like not shaming in any way, but Penthouse was pretty artistic in the 70s. It wasn't like, and even Playboy, it wasn't like fake, as fake blonde hair, like all that as it is now.
Yeah.
Like my mom is blonde, but she has no plastic surgery, nothing like that. She's kind of got that 70s more natural vibe, I guess.
Okay. So you got married in 2018. You've been with her. When did you meet her?
We met probably end of 2016. We were together just about a year when we got engaged.
Fucking stereotype. Okay.
Such a stereotype.
How'd y'all meet?
We met on the glamorous, very, very chic Tinder. Yeah.
All that buildup with all these like lesbian parties
I
and
know.
lesbian spaces and this, that. And
I know.
And there's lesbian apps, and then it's like, where'd you meet? Tinder.
We met on Tinder. Yeah. But it's interesting. I think that I feel so bad for a lot of my heterosexual friends because dating and online dating, they're not going to know who the person is. They're not going to probably have friends in common. With the lesbian world, like, I'm like, I could just go ask any friend, like, what do you think of Megan DeZuma? And they're like, oh, I know her forever. She's been around forever. She's a good girl, that one, So it's like we both had so many mutual friends, So I knew like she wasn't going to be a serial killer. It's almost like in the lesbian world, if you don't know Stacey Lentz, who is co-owner of the Stonewall Inn, and sort of like my wife calls her the Ellis Island of lesbians. Like you meet Stacey, you get a new name, and like you're in. And like, everyone, and she's also a matchmaker, like not officially, but she's just known as such a Yenta matchmaker. And she, she had been for years telling kind of both of us separately that we should be dating. Amazing. And I never put it together, that it was the same Megan, but. Okay. Yeah. So you kind of have this built-in security.
Mm-hmm. And what clicked? What clicked first?
What clicked first?
Not to be like, tell
we
me
were
why you love your wife.
No, it was interesting. This is so vapid, but fuck it. I'm vapid. It was funny because we were at this bar when we met, and she came up to me, and we were both like, I remember being like, because I'd just gotten out of a relationship with someone that was very threatened and jealous and didn't like all the attention I got on the internet and all the essay writing, that I was like, fuck it. This person has to know what they're getting into right away. So I just dressed as like my most flamboyant self. I was wearing completely see-through black dress. It was like, I think it was blizzarding outside. Like, it was completely inappropriate. I think I had like a collar on. Like, I was like, I'm just fucking going. I'd like huge platforms on. Normally I try and be a little bit more demure on a first date, but I was like, I'm just going to go as my boldest self. And if this girl can handle it, great. I'm going to talk about everything. And if she can't, I'm not making that mistake again where I feel like I have to dull my sparkle to make someone more comfortable.
I like you just talking about how like what you were wearing. Like, I'm normally more demure as you sit here in like this Disney princess gown from your photo shoot.
I know. I mean, I guess demure is relative, but
was there something you were worried about her possibly rejecting when you're going, I'm going to say
at
everything?
At that point, I was like, fuck it. And then she came and met up with me, and she was wearing a see-through shirt. And I was like, all right, we're off to a good start. And then we both started talking about like being on Prozac. Like we just like stopped bullshitting really quickly. And then also music is such a thing for me. And I have this toxic trait where I think my music taste is better than everybody. And then when we started hanging out and she was sending me songs and playlists that were way better than mine, way cooler, I was like, holy shit. And that was actually a huge part of how we fell in love, was we just send each other music all day at work, which I know sounds so like seventh grade, burning each other's CDs. But that's like, I'm a sucker for that. I love that sort of, I feel like I'm sort of like trapped in teenage years anyway. So
sure.
I love that kind of romance. But yeah. And then also just the fact that she really understood what I did and pushed me to do it further and bigger and better, and had no like fears of me getting too much attention or writing about exes or getting attention on the internet. Like, none of that. She loved it. You know, she was like, good for you. She even told me, maybe like don't tell your audience that we're dating, because I was a sex and dating writer, and so much of my job was going on dates and writing about them, which in hindsight sounds horrible. But yeah, but she's just so positive. So
were those things contentious when you would date previously?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Lesbians are crazy.
I mean, hey, I talk about my sex and dating life for the last like better part of a decade.
Do you
like,
run into that
get it.
then?
I mean, yeah, you get people who are nervous or worried, or they're so full of themselves, like, you're going to talk about me in your stand-up or on your
Isn't
podcast? And I'm like,
so stupid.
yeah, like you think you're that special? Like you haven't proven yet. You know,
Yeah,
like,
you haven't given me any content.
do something worthwhile before
Right.
you start getting so full of yourself.
Right, right.
I'm just saying, like, I can relate to that being
Right.
like an obstacle. I mean, I think I had one of my exes, P. She told somebody, she like, don't date the guy with the podcast. Don't date a guy with the podcast. And which, I mean, that's, I think, fair dating advice at large, but felt personal.
Right. I mean, don't date a writer, because like, we're the worst. We'll describe you. That's like, no one wants to be described, myself included. But
you got pushback for that when you would date?
yeah, or it would be too, or they'd be too into it.
Okay.
You know, and that also is a little weird.
Every time you do a new sex thing, they'd be like, you should write about that. I'd be like,
Write about this.
You're not my editor, okay?
Right. Like too caught up in all of that, and also maybe had their own agendas or things they wanted to launch, or, you know, that they wanted to use the media publications that I worked with.
Oh my God, you gotta tell me about who wanted to fuck you as a way to launch their own thing.
I mean, no, I don't know if it was like that blatant, but I think it's like, it can be what initially piques someone's interest.
Sure.
But I have a good nose for that shit. I always have, you know, because I find it so fucking disgusting. And when growing up, I had a best friend whose parents were famous, and just seeing that so young, and seeing how teachers were nicer to her, or people would try and talk to her to get to her parents, it's like, and I'm not saying I'm nothing. I'm no one. I fucking know that. I'm very self-aware. But it's just when people think that they have something that they can get from you, and media is just naturally kind of a lecherous industry, and it's all about your connections. And I just don't like that. That's why I'm so in my own sort of bubble, I guess. But I've come across a couple things like that. But for the most part, the main issue has been the opposite. It's more been like, oh, that's so cool that you write. I love that. Why are you writing about an ex? Right. You know, and it's like, it's so disrespectful because it's like people act as if your job is like writing your diary. But like, no, I work for a publication. I have to get numbers and I get assignments and I have to, you know, study and analyze what the audience wants and craft stories around it. And yes, pull from my life, but do it in a creative way that tells a story. Like I'm not just sitting here blogging about what happened to me last night.
Right.
You know, so I find it really insulting the way people treat creatives in general, you know, as if you're just rattling off your diary. And it's like, okay, if I did that, I don't think I'd be making money at it. You know, like it's a craft and it's an art, just like stand up, you know?
Yeah. Surely there's an example at the top of your mind when you're talking about people maybe wanting to use.
You know what? More with friends.
Okay.
I would say, actually, in hindsight, now that I'm thinking about it, it's mainly more, I can smell an opportunist,
Okay.
You know?
Do you smell any of that in this room?
Fuck no. It's rare. I mean, it's rare. It was mainly when I was working with bigger brands, but you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
I get that. Tell us a bit about this podcast you've got, this audio fiction drama on Jane Street, which is a real street, but the bar is not a real bar.
Yes. It's called Girls on Jane. And that's a kind of a play on words because you know how it's Jane Doe, they kind of do when they're talking about generic girl. So Girls on Jane, lesbian. And then the fictional bar is on Jane Street. So yeah, it takes place in 2007, and it is about a group of queer women, and they have lots of sex, lots of relationships. It's pretty. I call it like it's the gritty and glittery underworld of lesbian nightlife because there's a lot of drugs, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of pain, but then there's also a lot of like fun and partying and community and wildness and characters. And I was so inspired. It actually, I came up with the idea in the pandemic. My book had just come out, Girl Stop Passing Out in Your Makeup. And I loved writing a book. I have another one in the works. Like I want to write them till the day I die. But as someone who's written on the internet for so long, you know, the beginning time to writing a book to it coming out is so long. And I'm so used to things coming out quickly. And I love that. And as someone with severe ADHD, those kind of like tight deadlines and sense of urgency really streamlines and focuses and hones in my creativity. So I wanted to do something instant. Like I was like, I know, what ended up happening is I just wrote this chapter about this fictional bar called Dolly's with this androgynous model named Knife. That's like kind of like delusional and has a bit of a drug problem and likes to take home straight girls. And she goes to this bar all the time, Dolly's, where she's splashed up against all these other characters. Like there's this one older lesbian that's like bitter and her name is Jack and she talks like this, you know, and like she's, you know.
Do you do all the voices?
Yeah, I do all the voices. I do all the acting. And I just poured out of me. And then I thought about it and I'm like, I could never really write about lesbian culture the way I wanted unless it was fiction because I'd be just selling everyone out, you know, and that wouldn't be fair. We're a pretty secretive community. I can sell myself out, but I don't want to do it to everybody else. And I was like, this is just lends itself to amazing storytelling because what I love about the lesbian bar is that, you know, you're sitting next to someone who's like a construction worker on one side, and then next to you is like the heiress of like some obscure country, you know, whose dad's a diplomat, and she's there. And then you've got a college kid from NYU discussing pronouns with an older dyke who like, you know, remembers all the lesbian bars back in the day and remembers the Stonewall riots. And under no circumstances would we all be hanging out. The only thing we have in common is that we are lesbians. So, and there's only 3 lesbian bars in New York, and there are only, you know, a handful in the country. So, it ends up making your life so interesting because then these people become your friends, they become your family, they have your back. But I think when your world is so full of diversity and different characters, you become a more interesting dynamic person, you know? So I wanted to just explore all that because I had a friend who was newly out and I was telling her about all the characters in the scene that she was going to meet in New York. And she's like, as a hetero, when I was, you know, not out and I would go to straight bars, I would mainly be with people like me that like either I knew from work or friends I knew from college, but like, you know, you're splashed up against all these people and it can be complicated and there can be fights and generational things and disagreements and we're hard on each other. But in general, it's a family and it's so much fun to write about these opposites splashed against each other. I had another stroke. Each other. It's been a really long day.
Well, it sounds really cool. Actually, I'm very interested to check it out myself. It sounds like a fun fictional world to go enter in because I love sitting down at Gubby in the rare moments there's a chair to sit down in.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, it's my second favorite bar in all of New York City.
What's your
like
first favorite?
McSorley's.
Oh, okay.
You know McSorley's?
I haven't been, but I know of
Oldest
it.
ale house in New York.
Right.
Lincoln drank there after he gave a speech at Cooper Union. I just love it because it's just so much history is all over the place.
Right, I love that.
Walls. My great grandfather was a bartender there.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
My grandma lived upstairs, so like I don't know.
So you're like New Yorker.
I grew up in North Jersey, but like I mean
Where in North Jersey?
Bergen County.
I had like a brief. My wife and I lived in Montclair for like 6 months.
Okay, yeah, I know
and
Montclair.
then I was like, yeah, I'm not ready for this.
Where'd you grow up in Connecticut?
I grew up in Westport, Connecticut.
Westport. Zara, where can people go to find you, find your work, find Girls on Jane?
Girlsonjane.com. It is also available on all platforms like Spotify but if you prefer to read it, you can only read it on girlsonjane.com.
Oh, you can read it?
Yeah, if you want to read it, yeah.
Oh.
And I will disclaim, I think I describe it as a little too like bubble gum, and my friends are like, because I used to be like, oh, it's like Sex in the City for lesbians. They're like, no, it's like Euphoria, Zara. Like, and my barometer of like what's dark and I have such a dark, sick, twisted sensibility. And I don't know how to make small talk. So it's not Sex in the City. It is more of a Euphoria. Like there's lots of like drugs and like trauma and darkness, but it also is, you know, fun and has a lot of really hot sex, actually. I really pride myself on how hot the sex is. But my friends are like, you got to stop like being so bubblegum about it. And then they're going to read this and it's going to be like someone's overdosing and they're like, this is not what I signed up for. But I'm really proud of it. And it's scored with music. You know, wow. I'm super proud of it. And then I also have a podcast called Girls Interrupted. And that's girls with a Z. And that is we always say it's not a fucking mental health podcast. It's a mental illness podcast.
Wow.
It's a podcast for crazy bitches. And we just talk about everything like side effects of meds and eating disorders and all that. But it's funny. I mean, we find the nuance. Like we also cry and all that on it, but we're not afraid to laugh about it because that's what I have with the one-armed. My best friend Dana Troisi, who I hoed out in the beginning of the podcast by saying my podcast partner has one arm. She's iconic. She's an incredible writer, Dana Troisi. We should definitely have you on the podcast, actually.
Sure. Yeah. I'm a big old fucking mess. So.
She's really cool. She's also a lesbian sex and dating writer, and you know, we talk about all kinds of things, not just mental illness, but
yeah.
I'm
sure you sometimes talk about the one arm sometimes.
We often.
Well, everyone, go check that stuff out for sure. I'll have links in the show notes. Are you tight on time? Do you have another like 10, 20 minutes?
Let me see. I have somewhere. Let's see. I should be okay, actually. I have about 15.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's great. I was thinking, you say that you have this dark twisted sense
Yeah.
of things. So let's get into some darkness for like 10ish minutes.
Okay, let's
so
do it.
Patreon people, you'll hear that tomorrow. But for now, Zara, why don't you go ahead and say goodbye to everybody?
Bye.
Gosh, I feel like I haven't had to do this since Glamazon Tayomi claimed that half of the country was living with HIV and didn't know it. Yeah, I had to do a little fact check retraction for her on that one in the outro back then, and I'm gonna have to do it again. Chasing Amy did not win and was not nominated for GLAAD Awards. That's my bad. Chasing Amy won 2 Indie Spirit Awards, which are kind of sometimes gay awards, but was not GLAAD Awards. Shout out to my boy Kevin Smith, all the same. Just rewatched Jersey Girl not too long ago in my breakup sad vibes. Underrated Kevin Smith flick. And now that everyone's like talking about George Carlin because of the new documentary on HBO Max, my boy, my home guy, my hero, George Carlin. Yeah, I'm glad you're all catching up and discovering the man. You can watch him in Jersey Girl. It was really fun in that. Hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Zara Barrie. Glad I could finally get out of that and back into the outro stuff. Would love to get your feedback, your comments, your advice questions, your complaints. You can send any and all of that over to manwhorepod@gmail.com, or you can share your thoughts in the episode discussion channel in the Champagne Room. A lot of y'all have been showing up to join the Champagne Room. Welcome to all of you. You can join hundreds of horror heads at manwhorepod.com/Discord. We love it when you share the Man Whore Podcast on your social media. I love it even more when you share it not on your Swinger alt account, but when you share the Man Whore Podcast on Main. Don't forget to tag me when you do it. I'm on Twitter at @TheBillyProcida. I'm on Instagram at BillyIsProcida. Next week, we got one hell of a treat. Next week, we have got on one of you. Yes, we're bringing back the Naked Podcasts to talk to a very naked fan whore who very much wanted to be on the show. Hear me with Nude Chuck next week. Until then, everybody, stay slutty. You know you've made it in entertainment or are on your way out when you're helping dicks get and stay hard. Give your cock a natural performance boost with our sponsor, Joy Mode. No prescriptions, no drugs. It's just like a pre-workout, but for sex. Get 20% off your first order at usejoymode.com/manwhore. Again, that's usejoymode, USEJOYMODNE, and use promo code manwhore at checkout.